Good morning, Year 6. I hope you're well and have had a good morning so far. Just today, what we're going to look at is continuing our work on World War One poetry. We're going to furnish ourselves with some skills relating to metaphors and how we use those in our writing. And we're going to think then about our own sonnets, and we're going to start writing those. And hopefully, we'll continue to add to our own sonnets over the next few days and weeks, and next few days, so that we create a really impressive piece of 14-line poetry about what it would be like to be a World War One soldier. Okay, so today, to be successful, we need to reread some of the other poems we've got in our previous packs. Now, I'm not telling you which ones to do, so that's why it says reread. I want you to decide which one you think or which ones you want to look at again, whether it's the ones by Siegfried Sassoon, by Wilfred Owen, or by any of the other poets that you felt inspired by. I'd like you to identify, or we'll identify how metaphors are different from other figurative techniques of writing. We're going to practice writing some metaphors to describe how soldiers would feel. And finally, we're going to clarify the structure of sonnets and then start to draft and write our own 14-line poem. Okay. Right, guys, a little bit of recall about World War One. The reason for doing this is that the knowledge of World War One is incredibly important in our understanding of how to be a poet from World War One. So we're almost pretending we're Siegfried Sassoon or one of the other poets by pretending we are there. Right, guys. So, what trench warfare featured prominently in World War One? It was a method of fighting in which opposing armies. Now, on your pack, you've got some numbers where you've got to try and write the missing words. So what do you think number one is? It is, see in a sec. We'll go through each sentence and then you see if you can fill in the 10 words and we'll check yours at the end. During World War One, there were an estimated 2,490 kilometres of trenches throughout which continent? Most trenches were about 3 metres deep and between 1 and 2 metres wide. Now, life in trenches was extremely hard as well as dangerous. Most soldiers spent between a day and two. It's not 2 days, I'll give you that clue. 2 what? In a trench on the front line before being relieved, which meant they were moved away from the front line or from the trench. Sanitary conditions in the trenches were poor, and many soldiers suffered from gangrene and cholera. Often dead bodies were simply left out in the open rather than. What would the alternative be with a dead body rather than leaving it out in the open? Trenches could quickly flood during heavy snow, and one of the duties of the men was to drain water with a pump. Other duties included refilling sandbags and repairing the something flooring. So, what do you think they built the floor with? If you think about the pictures we've looked at of life in the trenches, what were they carrying to the trench to build the flooring and the walling with? Something which could grow as large as rats. Oh, cats! I've given you the seventh one. Something which could grow as large as cats were a problem in the trenches. Frogs, spiders, and what other animal or what other living being were also pests that soldiers had to battle daily? You remember of those scratching? What were they trying to get rid of? One of the worst things about life in the trenches was the horrible. Many men did not bathe for weeks, and the trenches also smelled of rotting sandbags, cigarette smoke, and poisonous. What do you think? Let's see how you did. Trenches. Europe was the continent where they were based. It's 2 weeks in a trench was normally about as long as you had to spend there before you moved away. Rather than being buried, heavy rain, wooden flooring, rats were those animals which were as big as cats, and then lice were the other pests, horrible smell, and the poisonous gas. Let's see how you did. Did anybody get 10? Well done if you did. Okay, guys, now on your pack, you've got some World War One language that I'd like you just to have a think about which one you'd like to select. And try and select 5 words that you want to include. So I've selected troops, forts, trench, bayonet, and tank. And when I'm writing my sonnet and compiling my sonnet, I'm thinking how I can use these different language points in my writing. So I'd like you to circle 5 of those language points. If there's other words that you've heard us discuss are relating to World War One, whether they're things like the Zeppelin in terms of that, sorry, it is on that sheet, sorry, Zeppelin, or if there's anything else you've heard us discuss about World War One that you want to include in your poet, do that instead. This is just to give you some words to focus on when you're being a poet later on. Right, guys, then, our core skill today, as well as vocabulary, is metaphor. Here's some metaphors. So we're thinking about metaphors. Now, I'm going to try and write some metaphors using some of that language that I've got on my screen from World War One. I'm going to try and write some metaphors. So the word troops. The troops are like parents protecting me. That's a good metaphor. I've created an image of these troops. Oh, It's not a metaphor. Why is it not a metaphor? It's not a metaphor because I've used are. Whereas if I'm writing a metaphor, I should not say I like my parents. I should say it's absolute. I should say they are my parents. So I've created the image of the other troops being protective towards me. I've said that they are my parents now, instead of saying they're like my parents. If I use the word like or as, it's a simile. And I'm not using similes. I'm using figurative language, but I'm using metaphor. So I write it as an absolute. I write it as though it is something. So troops are my parents protecting me. Okay, so I've got that line now. What else could I write about? Bayonets. Bayonets were empty bottles. Not our empty bottles. Bayonets were empty bottles, showing and not doing. So I've got now, rather than they were like that, I've got that they were that. Okay. Just a little bit then. I've got the idea of metaphors, and what I'd like you to do is try and write some metaphors of your own using those five pieces of language. So if you can, try and think about maybe grenade, navy, fight, battle. Maybe the name of the assassinated gentleman, Franz Ferdinand, maybe battlefield, that location for all the fighting. So could you use some metaphors about the experiences of those soldiers? Or write some metaphors, okay? Right, so that's the first bit. Write some metaphors. Just practice that skill. Remember, are and like we don't include because are and like are when we're writing a simile. Now, sonnets. How many lines in a sonnet? 5? No. 10? No, it's 14. 14 lines in a sonnet. Okay, a traditional sonnet would have 14 lines. Some of the sonnets, some of the poetry we've read is a little bit longer sometimes, but our structure is going to be the 14-line sonnet. And that sonnet normally has 3 quatrains, so 3 verses or 3 stanzas of 4 lines, okay? And the first line rhymes with the third line, so A, B, A, B. The 5th line rhymes with the 7th line, so C, D, C, D. And then the 9th line, so E, rhymes with the 11th line, so E. And then it finishes with G, G, that rhyming couplet at the end. So first 4 lines, that first quatrain, 2 sets of rhymes. Second quatrain, 2 sets of rhymes. E and F, then our third quatrain has 2 rhymes. And then finally, we finish with a rhyming couplet of GG. Now, so normally we aim at having 10 syllables for each line. Some of you might spot I've misspelled syllables, so sorry about that. So 10 beats for each line. Now, I'm not going to religiously check all of your poetry for the beats, but that's the structure we're aiming for a high quality sonnet. It's a slightly less strict rule for sonnets than it is for haiku, where we have that 5-7-5 structure. But the syllables are important for the rhythm and the beat of the poem. So, using our metaphors maybe from earlier, so bayonets were empty bottles, showing and not doing. Okay, so I've got a good opener. I like the idea they're empty bottles. So the idea that they're empty bottles creates this image. They're pointless. Okay, so a bayonet, it's all very well having a stick on the having a spike on the end of your rifle. However, if you run at somebody and they're shooting a machine gun at you, it's a waste of time. It might look like I can win a fight, but it's an empty bottle. It's a useless tool because by the time I'm out the trench, by the time I've gone over the top, I'm going to be shot. And if I'm shot, I can't do anything. It's a waste of time having this bottle. It's a waste of time having this bayonet. It's an empty bottle. It's a pointless device. Bayonets were empty bottles, showing, not doing. So I've got showing, not doing. Okay, I've explained that, doing. So I'm going to think, how can I rhyme that with doing? Should I check my number of beats? I should, shouldn't I? Bayonets were empty bottles, showing, not doing. When I come to edit, I've got 13 syllables at the moment. I need to reduce that. So when I'm thinking later, I need to edit that. Let's get rid of that. And not doing. Okay, so should we check? Bayonets were empty bottles, showing, not. Bayonets were empty bottles, showing. Aha! 10 syllables. Lovely job. Get rid of that red section then and not doing. So now I've got bayonets were empty bottles, showing. Now I'm trying to rhyme A, B, A, B. So I don't want my second line to rhyme my first one. I want my third one. So I'll look at my second line now. Forget the one that's written down above my red line. Now my second line is grenades landing on and next to me. Grenades landing on and next to me. Nearly got the number of syllables. Not quite. Can I increase it? I can. The grenades landing on me, on and next to my pal. Got it. Pal is my final line now. Final words then. So now what I've got, bayonets were empty bottles, showing. Grenades landing on and next to my pal. Okay, so I've got this idea. I'm creating an image of what it's like in the trench, and I'm trying to stick to that structure of 10 syllables a line and the rhymes alternate lines. Now, which word am I going to try and finish a rhyme with at the end of my next line? Showing. Yes, so showing. So A, B, A. So showing. What can I rhyme with showing? Knowing, going, hoeing, woeing. Sometimes you just have to verbalize it. And I know it might seem strange to you. Like I said, Ebo, I've got my mate here. I'm saying mine to my mate. Layla and Talia might be lucky because they can say their rhymes to each other. If you've got a mum or a dad around who you can practice your rhymes to, just see if they sound right, or a little brother or sister. Just try and get those rhymes working. Okay, try and get those rhymes working. Showing, not quite sure yet. So, knowing, haha, wanting to return home. Knowing, not quite enough syllables yet, though, is there? Not 10, so I need to edit it again. Wanting to return home, longing, knowing. Get in there now. Okay, so now I've got bayonets were empty bottles showing. Grenades landing on and next to my pal. Wanting to return home, longing, knowing. I'm getting the idea now. Lice here, rats there. It's dismal. Not quite enough syllables. Rice here, rats there. It's dismal. I need to add to that. Could I add an adjective to describe the dismalness? 10 syllables. Oh, what is dismal? My duty. Do you remember when Wilfred Owen described duty as this idea that people felt, this patriotic duty? He felt it at the beginning of the war, but at the end of it, he didn't think it was a duty that people should feel. Dulce decorum est. My duty feels dismal. The duty feels dismal because of the scenario he's facing in the trench, this soldier. So now we've got, if we forget the line that's written as the fourth line there, we've basically got bayonets were empty bottles showing, grenades standing on and next to my pal, wanting to return home, longing, knowing, lice here, rats there, my duty feels dismal. So dismal rhymes with pal, kind of. Sometimes the rhyme you need to say to somebody else to check whether it works. Now that's the first quatrain, the first 4 lines of my 14-line sonnet. Your job today is to try and think of those words that were missing at the beginning. Try and circle the vocabulary you want to use. Generate 5 metaphors using that vocabulary about life in the trench. So think of those. Finally, start to write your own sonnet. Four stanzas, or 3 stanzas and then a couplet at the end. So 3 quatrains, 3 lines of 4-line poetry, and where we have the A B, C D, E F, and then GG structure. Have a really good go. I can't wait to read them. You're great writers, guys. You've got lots of lovely ideas, and I think it will show your empathy and your understanding with the experiences of those soldiers in World War One if you create some great sonnets. Thank you for listening. I really do look forward to reading those. See you soon. Bye, guys. Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye.